All right, guys, we are here with the one and only Coach Trey Braun. I was going to say Trey Braun LeBron, but I don't.
Trey Braun LeBron.
We're recording this on Game 6 of the NBA Finals.
Yes, I'm going to be the LeBron of Game 5.
Yeah, who went off.
Yeah,
I'll be Kyrie,
yes.
so we'll both have 41.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me.
But we're not here to talk about basketball. We're here to talk about running, and we actually were trying to record this live through Facebook, but it kept dropping, so we're going to post it hopefully today to Facebook, but the plan is once a week. We're going to talk about some of the fun questions we're getting from runners just like you, as well as maybe even you, and then some of the running topics going on around the world. So we've got some questions we're going to ask the one and only Coach Trey, and then we've got some articles we're going to go over as well. But Trey, you ran this weekend, and this was it your first race?
This was
since you've gotten hurt?
Yep, this is my first race. I had not pinned on a number since then. So, and I chose the race because I knew I wouldn't put pressure on myself. So I chose originally back in January. I think I signed up for a 12-hour race this past weekend. So it was a 3, 6, 12, and 24-hour option. So I had back surgery. I ruptured a disc back in March. I had back surgery, and so I've been running now for about 6 or 7 weeks. So trying to slowly ramp up my mileage. So I chose this because I was like, you know what? There are going to be ultra runners out there, so I'm not tempted to go fast. I'm not tempted to push pace. I'm not tempted to say, hey, I want to run this distance. I said, hey, I'll just go out there and run what I can run. And then also had the chance to bring my son out there. So it was the first time he participated in any race like this. And so
we've got a picture we're going to throw up.
Fantastic. And so
you and your son?
There's me and my son post-race. That's at about 12:30 in the morning in Canton, Georgia.
This is the first I've seen the Hawks logo this late in the NBA season.
There you go.
Yeah.
That is
my favorite
happen. Shirt right there.
It's
my favorite
The pack
shirt.
Is back. It's true.
The pack is back.
Yeah. You saw Myrna? Is that right?
Saw Myrna. So here I am where I'm in line getting my number, and I look over and I'm like, that's got to be Myrna. And then all of a sudden I hear about 3 or 4 people scream her name. And sure enough, that was her. Her son was there. She was getting out after it. I think she was like many of us, where I think the heat and humidity just lit her up. So I don't know that she had the race she was hoping for. I was looking at the results, and I think she had to pack it in early. And but that's one of the beautiful parts about a timed race. You can run as much or as little as you want to.
Yeah.
You know, there's no pressure. You can just go out there and enjoy the run, and I will say the folks who put this race on, I think it's called the Tortoise and the Hare Racing. If you have a chance to do any of those and you live in Georgia, do their races, because I'm telling you, they did a cool theme. They had lights, they had characters out there. I mean, it was a really, really cool experience. Most ultras I go to, it's just about the run, but they put a lot of time, effort, energy into the race, and if that's a sign of what they do, I'd encourage those to go run that race. And then, of course, meeting Myrna was just a real highlight, being able to see her in person. I know me and you talked with her during the running summit a few months ago. And, I mean, she's just a blast to talk with.
Yeah, and I threw, let's see, you guys should be able to see it on the screen. I'll throw us up there too. You guys can see this is on our site. She was episode 35 on the podcast. And just on SoundCloud, that had 1.2 thousand listens. So she's a very, very popular episode. So you guys be sure and check that one out.
Yeah, she's a lot of fun. So it was a great weekend. It was great to get back out there and finally get a number on again. So
that's cool. Well, so what we're going to do is talk about a couple news articles that we saw pop up this week, as well as some Facebook questions. If you guys are listening to this and you're not in our Facebook group, I feel like I say this 4 times a day, but I want you guys to join our private Facebook group. If you go to connectrunclub.com/Facebook, it will take you right there. Or if you just look up Connect Run Club on Facebook, there's going to be a closed group. Click I want to join and we'll accept you. But it's fun. We've got a lot of great questions going on. And so, Trey, I think we're going to get into some of those questions real quick. Okay. And so I'm going to throw up our first one. All right. So my mouse died, and it's one of these new Apple mouses.
Yeah.
The only way you can charge it is with a lightning cable, but I don't have a lightning cable long enough. So I'm like reaching over here. So that is why my hand is here. If you guys are not watching this live, not watching the video, you should, because this has been quite an ordeal. So,
yeah.
All right. Let me throw up the question. So Gregory Byerline, who I think he's outside of Nashville, if I remember right. He's just curious, what distance or time window is your I don't leave the house for less than blank distance or time?
That's it. That's a really good question. I think there's a lot of thought that has to go into that, because I think about, I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to have to typically either run around my house or leave to go somewhere. I think about the effort of getting cleaned up afterwards, and I'm like, I can't imagine doing anything less than 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the line for me. Now, most of the time, I like to be able to run like 40 to 45 minutes, but I think if it's probably less than 30 minutes, I don't know. And don't they say, like, hey, kind of like what you're supposed to do is like have 30 minutes of movement or walking or exercise a day. So I'm like, if I don't do 30 minutes worth, like, I know almost some running plans been on there, like I do a 20-minute easy run. I'm like, how about we add a few minutes there? Because I feel weird when it's not 30 minutes. You know?
Or just 20 minutes. I'm just not going to do anything. Yeah.
Well, what point's 20 minutes?
What about like a track workout? Are they always 30 minutes for you at least?
Well, yeah, because here's the thing. On a track workout, there's always a warm up and a cool down, and that's typically about 10 mintes, 10 to 15 minutes. So in fact, track workouts for me are usually really long, because if you take in the 10 to 15 minutes, you're already looking at a 20 to 30 minute workout right there. You're not even working out. That's just the warm up process. So me and my son went the other day, and we were out there for 75 minutes. I was like, I forgot how long you can be at the track when you mix all that up. So you mix in all those intervals and repetitions.
Takes a while.
It could be a while.
That's good. So that's from Gregory. All right. The next question we're going to throw up. And this one is coming from John Henry. I can't pronounce your last name. He says, here's a question for the group. When you're doing a build-up for, say, 3 months, do you start with pickups for your first few weeks of our training and then move to, say, track workouts or 100 a month repeats? Is that a month? 100 or mouth repeat? Or do people do back-to-back tempo runs? I know the idea is to do 2 days a week, and that's hard, one long run a week, and the rest easy and recovery runs. I'm just curious how others use those 2 hard days. Any input is appreciated.
That's an excellent question. I'd be curious as to how hard, because I think it's rare to see too many hard efforts each week. If I'm doing a long run, I'm probably going to mix in one other hard effort. I'm a little concerned if I'm throwing in a track workout and a tempo run. Yeah, that just seems like that's a lot of hard. Yeah. Because typically the ratio you're looking for is, if you look at your weekly mileage, about 70 to 75% of those miles should be done at an easy pace. And so if you start mixing in a lot of that hard effort, that just seems like a recipe for injury right there. So I'd back off. And I mean, what I would do instead of doing that is I would say, hey, 1 week I'm going to do at the track. The next week I'm going to go tempo, and then rotate those. Maybe not rotate it each week. And if you're like, hey, I'd love to mix in something else, then mix in something with your long run. So as you're doing your long run, maybe you do like a fast finish for your long run, or maybe insert some kind of increase in pace the middle of your long run. I think there are different things you could do to your long run to make that effort even harder than it is. But I would caution you about going that hard twice a week. That just, in reality, is, can you benefit from it? Yeah, you can. However, that many miles of hard each week can lead to injury. And then at that point in time, none of us are having fun if we're sitting on the sideline.
Very true. So don't get hurt.
Don't get hurt.
All right. Next question that we saw popping up. And all of these have a lot of great comments. If you guys are in the groups, you guys can check those out. This is coming in from Patricia from Germany. Odd running question alert. On my longer runs, for some reason, the sock on my right foot inches up under my toes, causing numbness and pain that gets worse as my miles increase. Is it the socks? Is it the shoes? Is it me? It doesn't happen on runs less than 5/6 of a mile or 5 to 6 miles, but it's sure putting a crimp in my running style.
Yeah, it sounds like to me your socks are too big, and that's an easy. So there's 2 problems you can have with 3 problems you can have with socks. Number one, if they're too big, a lot of times there's too much movement on your foot, and that's, if you ask me, that's what this sounds like. It sounds like they're way too big, which was what's causing the movement on your foot. The other part, people sometimes wear them too small. At that point in time, they're scrunching up your toes, and your toes are going to pop out. I think the other thing that you have to make sure is that not all socks are created equal, and depending upon what kind of shoes you run in, make sure your shoes are designed for your socks. I know that sounds crazy, but if you're wearing a shoe that's pretty narrow and pretty tight, you need to make sure you have a thinner sock. If you're wearing something that has a little room in it, you need a little bit of a thicker sock. So, and I will tell you, and in fact, the place I should get sponsorship from because I'm going to mention them, but one of my favorite places to get socks is called Sock Geek. Sock Geek, they will fit your socks to your shoe. So they will recommend for you a sock that goes with your shoe, because I will tell you now, don't just put on a pair of socks and expect it to go with all of your shoes. Socks are critical. In fact, I can't express you enough how important your socks are. If you're not wearing the right sock, it can really hurt you. And especially, I'm telling you, even a pair of Balega. So I'd like to run a Balega. I know a lot of us do. Not every one of those are the same. There's different thickness. There's different, they go with different shoes. So there are certain pairs of socks that I don't wear with certain pairs of shoes. So make sure your sock is fitting your shoe. The other thing that I would look at, and I don't remember what it's called, Brandon, but have you tried the socks that have like the fitting in the middle of the foot?
Yeah.
That's important too. If you use those kind of socks, I don't remember what it's called, but they're more fitted in the middle of your foot, that will cause less slippage. But I'm telling you, I do believe your socks are probably too big. If you go a little bit smaller sock and try that sock that has that fitting in the middle of your foot, that will cause a lot less slippage. And because I tell you what, there's not much fun running with a bad pair of socks.
I've never heard you say slippage before.
Slippage.
That's good.
It's my new word.
Also, some folks in the comments were talking about putting your socks inside out, which I'd never heard before.
That's kind of crazy. I've never heard that either.
Also, what do you think of the folks that put pantyhose, is it between their feet and their socks, or their socks and their shoes? Have you heard that?
I have not. That's crazy right there.
So it doesn't. So there's not as much friction. I've heard people do that too. Yeah.
Have you heard about triathletes who don't wear socks? They just put Vaseline in their shoes.
Yeah. It makes sense. You're trying to save those extra seconds. So
yeah, I get it.
I wore socks when I did my triathlon.
I understand. I wear them too.
I also stood at the transition for about 15 minutes because we're all doing it together, and I'd gotten out of the water faster because that was the only thing I was fast at.
Yeah.
And then I was waiting for it. So I had some time.
Funny.
Everyone would blow through, and I wouldn't. But all right. So that I believe was our last question from the group. Again, we want you guys to check that out. If you go to connectrunclub.com /Facebook, you can join our Facebook group if you are not already. But Trey, we've got some news articles that we wanted to talk about. So the first one, again, this reaching is fun. It is from 538, a fun blog. But they were talking about the 5K, not the marathon, is the ideal race. Mm-hmm. And so he wasn't really making the point that the 5K is better. It's just he was making the point that in the U.S., especially, if you're running a marathon, that's a lot bigger deal than if you're running a 5K to most folks. So, like, if you're going to go out and run 3 miles, people will be like, well, maybe you'll get to a half marathon or marathon someday. But for these guys that are running sub 14-minute 5Ks, that's a huge deal. It
is. And I've had people mention that to me because they're like, oh, they know I've run the marathon or ultra marathons. And so they're like, oh, you're doing a 5K. That must be no big deal. I'm like, if it's no big deal, I'm not doing it correctly. Right. I'm like, and I'll say this, that if you ask me which would be easier today, cutting 20 minutes off my marathon PR or cutting 2 minutes off my 5K, I'll take the 20 minutes on the marathon any day because it is physically impossible for me to go but so fast in that 5K. And all you have to do is try that. I mean, try running that fast for 18 minutes. I mean, it's crazy. And so what's really funny, and I think this will be a good intro for next week, is we kind of talked about this yesterday, we talked with Rowan James, I think. Mm-hmm. He is the race director for the Comrades Marathon, which it's not a marathon, by the way. But they talked about in South Africa, the marathon's just not the event like it is here. The marathon is looked at here as the kind of the pinnacle of events, but over in South Africa, the ultra marathon is looked at differently. And so it really is funny the kind of remarks you get. But yeah, I mean, I stand more amazed at some of these guys who are putting in, a 14 or sub 15 minute 5K. That just boggles my mind to go that fast.
Yeah. Now, would you rather have an impressive 5K PR or an impressive marathon PR? you had to pick. So like the same category for your
Yeah.
age group, whatever that would be, that time would change.
It depends, because there are certain marks. It's like for me, I've gotten really close to a sub 18 5K. So if I could do that, to be able to say I was like a 17-minute 5K guy, that would be impressive. I think the only thing that would stand out from a marathon, if I was able to break 3 hours,
Okay.
because otherwise a 3:33 or a 3:03 to me, it
Not a
doesn't
big
sound
difference.
any different.
Yeah.
But in a 5K, especially to runners, if you say someone in 5K, I'm a sub 15 guy, they're like, oh my, I mean, that
You're
they
quick.
can relate, because everyone's done a 5K.
Yeah.
Not everyone's done a marathon.
true.
So if you mention a marathon time, they might be like, okay, well, is that fast or is that slow?
Right.
But they can relate to what a 5K is, because most people are like, okay, well, 10-minute miles, I can do a 30 minutes. So if you're talking about someone who's doing half that time, then that's where they can get. So yeah, I think it depends.
So we would love to know, I realize we did not have our faces up that whole time, if you guys would rather be a great 5Ker and an okay marathoner, or a great marathoner and an okay 5Ker. So
That's a good
speed
question.
or distance, let us know in the comments of this video, or shoot us up on Twitter at Connect Run Club, and Trey is at Run on Purpose.
That's right.
So, all right. So, moving right along, we've got another article, Trey. I know you wanted to chat about a little bit.
Yeah, this one was my idea. I am, and in fact, if you ever follow me on Twitter, you will see me probably retweet a lot of Dan Rockwell, who I think he is Leadership Freak on Twitter. And but he wrote an article not too long ago, and I really took this to kind of my running a little bit. And the article is 7 ways to become remarkable, and there were some of these that really stood out to me with my running in regards to running, and I just thought I'd bring them up and challenge all of us as, hey, I know we all have a desire to become remarkable, we all have a desire to become better, and so I thought some of these are really interesting. Number one, take an opportunity to connect with remarkable people. And, I think we get the chance to do that on the podcast, from race directors to other athletes. And I don't know about you, but it often inspires me to become better and better, being able to talk to some of the really, really neat people. And in fact, that's what was funny Saturday night when I saw Myrna. There was just something about seeing her. I was like, man, I want to do. You almost inspired to do well. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't want to see her to see me quit. I don't want that to happen. So there's a little pressure there. Number two, I thought was good too. Do less of what you did yesterday. And honestly, in my recovery process, this has really struck home for me. I'm trying a lot of new things because I don't have my speed. And so this week I've done 2 days of back-to-back doubles. Why? Just because I'm trying something different. I'm just trying to put some pressure on myself. I'm just trying to put a little extra stuff in there I haven't tried before. There are a couple of other things I thought were good. Number 3 was reject excuses and do the scary thing. I think it's a good idea to always take a leap. I love being able to challenge yourself. There are a couple of others. I think something else that this kind of lit me a little bit is one of the last ones was lean into dissatisfaction with optimism, not despair. One of the things I totally love about leadership and growth in general, and whether it's our running, but I always believe that, and this reminds me of someone I want on the podcast, we need to talk about this, but a guy named Eddie McCoy, a guy who I follow, he lost a ton of weight and he's getting fast. Anyway, what I believe is you don't have change as a person until you have disgust. But I don't think disgust has to be all negative. You know what I mean? And that's where I like this lean to dissatisfaction with optimism and not despair. It's not a disgust as in, I'm lost as disgust as in, hey, now I get to make some change. I don't know. I just thought this article was really neat. Brought some cool things out of things that I thought was really applicable to our running.
That's good. So you guys can check that out at, was it leadershipfreak.wordpress.com?
.wordpress.com. That's it.
That is it.
He's got a lot of good stuff.
Well, we're going to try and do one other thing. We'll see if this works. But this is actually a clip from our the podcast that just went out this week with Amby Burfoot, the one and only legend from Runner's World.
He is a legend.
And this was a interview we did back at the Running Summit. And we were chatting with him. And towards the end, one of the questions that came up is, how do you train masters runners? And so he did a great job of kind of talking through the best way that you can train as you get older. So we know many of our folks, you may be on the older side of things, or you could be on the younger side of things, but either way, this is a great piece of advice. So we're going to jump into that, and you guys can listen from Amby Burfoot, and hopefully this will work. Let's find out.
Ideas for masters runners. It's a rapidly growing category of runners, coaching some runners in their 50s. I think he's a coach as well.
Yeah, I think we talked about this a little while ago. I think with masters running, I think strength is increasingly important. I think speed work and power are increasingly important because, sad to say, that's what we lose when we get into our 50s, and we lose a lot more in 60s and 70s, as I'm learning. And the only way you can retain those things is with the kind of training that really hones in on them. But speed work, strength training, plyometrics, that sort of stuff is also a little bit risky, so you have to be careful. You have to find the fine edge, and you always have to be sure you're doing more recovery and more alternative training than you probably did as a younger athlete or with younger athletes. So the Bill Pierce Furman First system can work pretty good with masters athletes, I think. I've noticed just anecdotally that some of the really good masters athletes, not all, but some are the guys who really had some muscle to begin to and hang on to it and still have it when they're in their 50s and 60s. And I've gone into the gym for the first time in my life the last 2 years trying to develop some muscle, and I'm not going to flex because you would see how successful I've been, but I'm working at it because you can really see that it's important. And if I could pick up a few seconds per mile, I would be delighted. And I can kind of tell it's not going to come by doing more miles on the road. It's going to come by getting some strength and speed back.
That's good.
So during that, I had the little pip on the right side. Yeah. And I realized that everyone could see us while we were watching it. So if you like me stretching, that was good. Also, what was funny, but we'll talk about Amby, but we both made the same reactions as he was talking that we did live. Like that we did during the interview. You're like, you went, and he was like, But no, he talked about the Bill Pierce, the Furman. Yeah. And so folks that aren't familiar with that, that's a great resource.
It is. We had, and it's a little bit of a hot topic too, because I remember during the running summit, we actually asked another coach. I don't remember who it was. We asked another coach about him, and it was interesting to me because we got a different reaction. Like, I don't think that works, and that's not what elite athletes do. But look, I'm not an elite athlete, and so I think you have to find what works for you. And I actually do know a couple of guys who are using it, and it works for them. So I think you do have to find what works for you, especially as a masters runner.
Yeah, and the biggest thing was that you run less, right?
You do, you only run it 3 days a week.
You run 3 days a week. So this is Bill Pierce. He's up at Furman University. This is the website. If you just search for Furman First and running. But the book is Run Less, Run Faster, and that is on Amazon. But you guys can check out, that's the site right there. But it's a training plan that only puts you on the road 3 days a week. So talking about injury prevention, it gets you out there, but not doing some crazy stuff. So
and it has you doing more cross training. So you're not not active. You're still doing stuff, but you're only running 3 days a week. And so the intensity of those workouts, it goes completely against everything we've ever talked about, which is 70 to 80% of your runs are easy. In this, you're running a lot less, and so the intensity of your workouts changes dramatically. And so, but the whole idea is you're doing more cross training and you're running less, and so your body should be able to handle it. At least that is the idea. So
that's it. Well, guys, we had a blast chatting at you. Maybe you're chatting with us on the comments.
Yes.
And we're going to try to do these on Thursdays. Trey's actually out next week, so we may improvise. But we'll be back. And so check us out on Thursdays. Again, join our Facebook group, connectrun.com/Facebook, or check out our podcast, Connect Run Club, on iTunes.
Can they invite a friend to join?
I think you can. I mean, you obviously can invite a friend, like send them the link, but I'm trying to think if you can inside the club. Pretty sure you can. Okay. You can add other folks to it.
Invite a friend.
Invite a friend. Bye.